Hey there everyone, this is Sam from Samuel Plays Brass, back at it again with another instrument review coming down the pipeline. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to stick around for more. Today we're looking at the Yamaha YSL-354 student model tenor trombone. So this is very much your entry-level, beginner, fairly versatile student trombone. It's got an 8-inch bell, a 500 bore, it's got that Yamaha counterweight there, and your typical water key on the end of the slide. This particular instance is missing its rubber nub on the end of the slide. It's a nice instrument for starting out in any style, kind of no matter where you come from. It's fine for high brass players transitioning to low brass. It's not too big and unapproachable. And for your euphonium and tuba players who are looking to learn trombone, this isn't a bad choice either. There's actually another student model trombone by Yamaha that unfortunately I can't remember the model number of, but it's not the 354, and that one feels like an absolute trumpet to play. Trying to approach it with my low brass chop setup and air usage is nearly impossible. I am constantly fighting the instrument and it's just an absolute nightmare to play, whereas this is very versatile. You can produce a lot of different tones on it, as I'll demonstrate in some excerpts to follow. It's fairly easy, free blowing, it's not too restrictive. It just feels like a smaller trombone. Just a little bit smaller so that you can play sort of jazz-oriented stuff on it, but still not so small that you can't possibly play classically.
As I mentioned trumpet and euphonium doublers, I'd like to take a second to segue into our fun fact of the day. If you don't want to learn the slide, there is a variant of the 354 known as the 354V, which as you can see functions as a valve trombone. So theoretically, if you wanted an interchangeable slide and valve trombone for cheap, you could get both the slide and the valve section. They would fit on the same bell, and you would essentially have two different horns in one. I just think that's pretty cool. Anyways, back to our normal programming. Let's also take a quick look at the case of this instrument. It's your standard Yamaha hard case with 3 latches up top, nothing too special. It's got room for the bell section, the slide section, and your trombone essentials. This part of the case should have a flap on it, but that's been lost to time. This has room for mouthpieces and lubricants, however, you will want to invest in a mouthpiece pouch. As for the slide section, it is held in place with these rotating clamps here that just ensure that the slide won't go flying around in transit.
So saying and bearing in mind whatever you will about Yamaha Xenos and Custom Zs and what kind of sound they put out versus other brands, I think Yamaha's student models are some of the finest on the market. They're really, really well built and always consistent. That's a big thing about Yamaha, is their culture as a company really strives for the best quality control among all levels of instruments, including the most basic, and really this is no exception. Everything works nicely on this trombone. Besides a dent around 5th position, the slide is nice and easy. The tone is consistent throughout all the registers. There are no real intonation issues to speak of. Although, if I may digress, intonation on trombone is a bit of a funny one because all you can really test is the open partials. There's nothing too shocking there, obviously. Everything speaks fine and plays in tune with itself. And overall, this is a very consistent instrument and you're very likely to get a good example of one if you shell out for one. If you know me, you'll know I love my pedal tones on low brass, and this instrument has some of the barkiest pedals I've ever heard. I will demonstrate that here. And all the registers speak fairly nicely. The high register is a little bit stuffy, in my opinion. I've played more free-blowing trombones up there than this one, and that's supposed to kind of be the merit of a small bore tenor trombone, is being able to pop out those high notes. But if you use a shallower mouthpiece, it comes out fine. Placing a shallower mouthpiece into this shank, like a Blessing 6.5 AL, is going to really, really brighten up your sound and make it almost strident, and the high notes are going to pop out a little bit easier. But in general, you're going to want something a little bit more balanced, I think, for your all-around playing. This is a Dennis Wick 6BS for trombone. It's supposed to be on the shallower side, but it's only a little bit shallower than a Bach 5G, and it's close to the same diameter, so it's a little bit more streamlined than most Bach sizes, and it allows you, I think, the greatest freedom for all the styles you play. All of the excerpts in this video are going to be done on the Wick 6BS, and honestly, I think it goes fine with either classical or jazz playing, and anything in between the two. So a big part of this is finding the right mouthpiece to help balance high notes and low notes and classical sound and jazz sound. So there's no correct answer to this, but between the 6.5 AL, the 6BS here, and the 5G I've played, this is definitely the middle ground on a size you should consider looking into.
Something to keep in mind with Yamaha instruments in general is that the mouthpieces you use on them go quite far into their shanks. You take this Wick, for instance, it fits just fine, that's not too far, but this particular example of a blessing, although it may be an anomaly, actually barely fits at the bottom of the receiver. It kind of spins around a little bit loosely in there unless you really press it in, which is not something I like to do. So just bear that in mind that you may have to find a slightly tighter fitting mouthpiece for this horn.
As far as trombones go, this is a nice trombone, but it's fairly unremarkable, so there's not a whole lot to say about it in a review. You can check more information out at the Yamaha website down below, but really I think I've said most of it. The Yamaha YSL-354 is a great choice for any student trombonist, and even for me, I like to think I'm a little bit better than a 5th grader at trombone, but it still serves me fine. I am getting this traded out for another horn actually, which you will see at some point, because being 5'4" and having to play B naturals are not conducive to one another. They are nearly mutually exclusive. But in any case, it's been a fun year with this horn, and honestly, I don't have any real complaints besides user wear. I mean, that's not right. But as a trombone, in its new state, the Yamaha YSL-354 is going to serve you very well for the first probably 3, 4, maybe 5 years if you're playing, for just about anything you can throw at it. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick review. If you want to check out more reviews, there's a playlist up in the card for you to look at. Again, consider subscribing and liking this video if you've made it this far. It really helps out. And until next time, we'll see you on the flip side.